Welcome to episode 3 of the MB Dog Training Podcast. So I've got Lewis here from Manchester Canine Academy. He's agreed to join us for the episode. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for coming on, Lewis.
No problem.
So before we get started, who are you? How did you get into, well, what do you do? How did you get into it? And why should people listen to you?
Yeah, so I've been a dog trainer now for about 5 years. Coincide with the dog training. Not many people know this about me, but I'm a firefighter as well. So I still work both jobs around each other. Main reason for getting into the dog training, it's always been like a passion anyway, you know.
Yeah.
You've had dogs over the years and you just want your dog to be a well-balanced dog and not have any problems, issues at home and that kind of stuff. So when I joined the fire service, the way it runs the rota there, you got plenty of time off each week. So my wife was like, you're not going to sit at home and do nothing, you're going to have to go out there and do something. So that's where I first started off with a dog business as dog walking.
Yeah.
I was just around dogs all the time, and then the passion being dog training, that's where I kind of just switched from there. I was like, I don't really want to do the walking. I can have more of an impact on dogs actually trying to help. So when I started off the business, it'd be more of just me and the dog together and not so much sort of teaching the client. But it didn't take me long to realise that you have to teach the owner. It's nothing really to do with the dog. So yeah, we're at this stage now. I built up a good sort of following on social media.
I'm past 100,000.
About 115 or something now. So it's doing all right. But I think what's helped me sort of get that kind of a following is I'm quite controversial. I don't mind jumping out there and saying something, but I guess that's what people on social media are looking for.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter really what a person says. They'll just jump on it straight away. You obviously got that side of the fence where someone totally believes in what you say, and then the other side where they're going to argue that. But it's done well for me. But the thing I think of when I've tried to build up this social media following, I'd say that's kind of taken away my own skills. So not just as what I would do with a client, because do you know what I mean? That's where I'm at, and I'm at a good level, I think, as to what I teach people. But I just mean like with my own dog. I know there's a lot more dog within my dog, and I kind of think like we've done well to where we're at now, but I think I'm going to kind of take a step back a little bit from putting so much out on social media and just focus on working a dog. Yeah, just focus on working a dog.
But if you stop Instagram,
no, I'm not going to stop it. But it just won't be. Yeah, it just won't, because a lot of my content, not recently, but say 6 months ago, it's a lot of just before and after video, and I'm posting the same video every single day. And
this dog pulling, and then this dog not pulling.
It's the same thing over and over. And someone said to me as well, I did some training with a friend, and they said, you've got so much more than just a before and after walking video. And I was like, I know. So my plan this year, the stuff that I will put on social media, it'll be more educational purposes. Trying to actually make a wider impact rather than just someone seeing it before and after, because I think that leads someone into a false sense of security. They're going to come along and they think you're going to click your fingers and they're fixed forever, where obviously you'll know dog training don't really work like that. So my message that I'll be putting out there now is to enjoy the journey of dog training. Don't just come along, think you're going to put a week's worth of work.
It's not just, you're not going to go just from A to B. You've got to think about the steps in between. I suppose that what you're saying, that you're not going to click your fingers. I think the worst thing that happens sometimes, and I know I'm guilty of it, I'm sure you will be too, you get a video where it's a real big contrast and it happened in half an hour. And it's great and they sell well. Like if I'm going to sell a training to someone, I'm going to go, well, look at this. And this dog was a complete pillock a minute ago, and now look at it, and it was half an hour because it didn't need much. But then I think sometimes that then you get some people booking thinking, oh, well, I only need to do half an hour worth, and then you get the client where they're not really going to put the work in because you sold it as, like, maybe didn't sell it, but the video sold it as it's that easy. And sometimes it is, but then I think the people that struggle and put all the work in and they try really hard, they get like punished, I guess, and they feel awful because my dog isn't doing it like that video. And I feel, so I know one that had this exact issue. If I was gonna let my dog go to someone else and they had to have been a client, I'd give it to them. These two fellas, they put all this work in with the dog, they did everything. The dog was just not physically and genetically sound, and it had the worst start to life, and they're doing everything and they're doing it well, but it's just a losing battle with that dog. But then I get others where they're not doing anything right, and then they just put a little bit of effort in and they get this massive result, and then the people that are putting in the work feel really defeated by it.
That's it.
And I suppose it's one of the things, so I'm trying to get more of the YouTube, obviously the podcast goes on YouTube, just trying to get that honesty out there that, look, it doesn't look like that, it's messy, look at me fall over this dog here while I'm trying to get it to,
that's right.
look at this client having to go and take a minute because the dog's freaked him out and stressed him out enough, and so I want to try and get more of that this year as well, so like see that honest side of it.
I think one of the big things that I've come to the conclusion of, and someone else said it to me recently as well, is what I've been doing with my own dog is training for social media. So training to make a video look good, which obviously you do need to do bits of, because that's your advertisement then for what you can do with a dog, and that's what you want people to see. But obviously the point what we're making here is you skip out all the hours that it takes to get to that point. So I've just started with my dog now. I've just got into, trying to get into a dog sport, so KMPV.
Yeah, you went to Jay Obsidian.
Jay at Obsidian. So I really look up to him anyway. I think he's a great trainer, and he's currently going over to the Netherlands once a month just to learn from the best in the world. So no time like the present, I might as well go and pick his brains while he's getting the best information that he can out there. But I think that's what I think that's what I'm going to show in my content now with my dog, is sort of the journey that we go on with it, not just put in a load of work together and then you just see the end result of that, because I want it to be more honest. I want people to see that I'm on an actual journey as well, not just we don't just get things, you know what I mean? So that's what I want to try and show.
I love that. So
that would be honest about it.
See, that'd be something that, like, you probably already thought of this, but that'd make like a really good YouTube series where you go, right, I'm going to go do this session, I'm going to go and learn this thing, watch me make a complete hash of it, and watch me figure it out, and then not just see the dog get better. Because I know, so you've seen Yorkshire Canine, what's it called? Jacob. Like, he puts the ones on with him and Stark, his Malinois, and it's like, the dog's an absolute gangster, but how did you make it happen?
Yeah.
And I went there to see, I was going to go and like try and learn some of that stuff from them with Albus, with my Border Collie, and it was like they kind of didn't know how to get me to do the sport side of it, and I felt a bit deflated after that, because his dog looks like that, but I didn't feel like he could tell me how to get my dog to look like that.
But you know what I think a big thing about that is obviously I've never met your dog before, so not trying to say the dog's not suitable or anything like that, but you think of someone like him who's got that kind of dog, that dog's already bred in life to do that, so it's dead easy with a dog like that. It comes natural. You don't really need to, obviously different movements and stuff like that you would need to teach the dog, but once you start showing it, it's that intelligent that it's just going to pick it all up. So I think obviously some dogs, and you'll know, come to sessions and then you can see they stand out a little bit. They've got something about them. You show them a couple of times and they pick it up really well. Obviously other dogs are slower learners, but I would definitely say people who make their dog look amazing, obviously they put a lot of time and effort into it, but they have got the right type of dog to do it with in the first place.
Because like, even if he wasn't able to do it, now he loves learning, he loves all that kind of thing, I feel like he'd be obviously not a Malinois level, but he'd be good at it, and it'd be something fun to go on with him. But I left there thinking I didn't learn a thing, but I think they were also kind of asking me questions like, does he jump up at guests, does it? I'm like, no, he's an absolute
that's not what you're
legend.
He's
fine. Can you teach me just some fancy stuff with him? Can you just show me where to start, where to get going? And I left thinking, I don't know if I'm any better at teaching that than when I got here. I've got anything you told me there, I've got off just YouTube or Layberg. So in terms, so one of the things that we both do a lot of, and like obviously our bread and butter, you said just before we started the actual recording, mainly it's reactivity. Like that's the big thing that we deal with now. It's rising all the time. It's getting more and more common, and we'll have a chat about why we think that's happening on a bigger picture. So you're a balance trainer. You deal with all four quadrants of operant conditioning. You do owner education, very, very similar to how I go about things, and a lot of other trainers do. So reactivity is getting more and more common. I don't know if it's, I get more messages in my inbox now because it's what I do a lot of, that I get more of that, or whether it's just becoming more common. But what I see is more and more messages, my dog's reactive, my dog's reactive. I'm getting less people saying, I want to work on recall, I want to work on whatever. Yeah. But then at least 65% will be, my dog's being a twat on a walk. Yeah. How do I, why do I, what do I? Why do you think it's becoming more common?
Education with dog owners. Cool. That's the root cause. Most people are getting a breed of dog that is not suitable for them. Yeah. And like I said earlier, I don't mind being I don't mind putting my opinion out there. Yeah. So if someone comes to a session and they've got a certain breed of dog, and I'm going to look at that person and I'm going to ask that question, why have you got that dog? Why did you choose it? And most of them can't tell you anything about the dog. They don't know what it's bred for in life. Obviously, the common dog, let's say German Shepherd. Most people got German Shepherd, reactive, but they don't know what it was bred for. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know what they need to do to fulfill that dog's needs. And if that dog's not got the outlet for them to get rid of them needs, then it's just going to be built up inside. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Education is where it starts for me. But then obviously, educational purposes, people think that a daycare is where you need to be sending your dog, and I've never been to one, so I don't know what one looks like, but I could imagine it's chaos.
Yeah. Picture like taking your kids to Disneyland every day.
Yeah, and there's no supervision there. So I'm not saying there's no supervision, but every interaction that the dog has, whether it's good or bad, there's not going to be someone there.
There's not, for everything that happens, 7 things are going to get missed, no matter how clued up the staff there are. So owner education, so this question that kind of just popped into my mind there. So you talk about, and I talk about this a lot, but I feel like it goes on deaf ears because people have already got the dog when they find me. Yeah. They didn't find me before the dog. Like, I can count on sort of one hand the amount of people in the last year that have said, I'm getting a dog, how do I? Yeah. It's always, I've got a dog, and it's... So if someone comes to you and they have an idea on, or they've got the dogs already, and they've got the problem, and it kind of is what it is now, especially like XL Bullies at the minute, because now that dog is theirs. Yeah. So they've not even got the option of moving it on. It'd be great if we could educate people that you should have got a Shih Tzu instead of a Malinois or a German Shepherd. If someone comes to you and you've got a dog that they're not suited for, but it is what it is now, how do you go about educating them, but also just cracking on with the problem with your hands tied behind your back because the owner's maybe not physically or emotionally or mentally prepared for the dog?
The first 2 things that I will work on in any session, doesn't matter if it's reactivity or not, any session at all, 2 things I work on is relationship. So that for me, it needs to, the foundation of a relationship needs to be built around fun, having fun together. And then the other thing that I find is important is engagement. So for me, there's two stages to engagement. One of them is a one-way process, and then the other way is a 2-way process. So what I mean by that is, say we look at the one-way process first. What the dog, all it needs to do is pay attention. But what I won't do, say we were stood in a room, the dog's in the room with us, I'm not going to beg for that dog to look at me. I'll let the dog look at me, and then I'll mark that behaviour and I'll say, well done. So it's on the dog's terms. The dog's thinking that as long as they choose to engage, then a good thing will come for them. So for me, that's a one-way process. The dog initiates a reward from me. So then the way I would turn that into a 2-way process is the dog does the same thing again. They have to instigate my attention, but then when they do that, they can access even more. So they can access a lot of fun, playfulness, that kind of stuff. So for me, that's what I said. Relationship, us and dog together, and building up engagement. That's the first 2 things I will work on with any client, because if the client's got a reactive dog and they're walking down the street and the dog can't take its eyes off what's across the road, obviously it could be for number of different reasons. It might be aggressive towards that dog. It might be over friendly and it's frustrated through the lead and it wants to get over there. But basically, in that moment, the dog, reactive one, is choosing what's on the other side of the road as more valuable than what we are. So for me, it's building value in us first before we go on to the actual issue. Yeah. I don't know, what's your take on that?
So if you go through my Instagram or whatever, you'll see, it won't take you long to see build engagement first or build relationship first. I could find a reel in about a minute, I'm sure. And I think a lot of the time it's easy to say that, but getting a human to be like, right, so I can't just go and fix this issue. I have to go around. I have to take detours and do all these and build all this stuff. And I think for those people who have got a reactive dog, often they themselves have got to build their own skill set first. And they've got to then, while they're doing that, somehow build the dog's skill set. And I think in there gets lost, just get to know your dog, to treat it like a dog, but start to build that relationship with it. And I know if I could go back and start again, there's a lot of cases where I've gone in and I thought, I can see the issue, I can see what needs doing, and it's not going to be that hard, but I've maybe bypassed, I've maybe skipped a session, like a full session where it was, let's just get your dog to love hanging out with you, spending time with you. Something that I've done with a lot of people recently is you're going to go out and once you go out, spend that time in your garden, and like pretty much what you were saying, like free shaping that attention, either in your garden or the street in front of you. You're just going to keep moving away from your dog, and anytime their eyes come above sort of your waist height and look at you, you're going to mark and reward every single time. And people are like, oh god, they'll be full well quick. You'd be surprised.
Just one big point on that, and I'll get to the point I'm going to say in a second, but when you get that attention from your dog or a client's dog in general, do you ever put a command with that? So do you ever ask for them to look at you or focus? Or
no, like Albus knows look at me, my dog knows look at me. I've never taught a client to teach a command on it because I want it to be a habit. I've always wanted it to be, and again, if you look at any videos of Albus walking down the street, he's walking along and every 10, 20, 30 yards, head comes up, looks at me, and I'll say, hey buddy, love you. And then I might miss a lot of those eye contacts, but it's a habit. He can't help it. You can tell. It's like, I don't know if you've got the same habit as me, but I sit on the couch and I'm halfway into my couch and my hand's in my pocket, bringing my phone out ready to scroll. I'm not doing it on purpose. I don't have any purpose to... There's nothing there to scroll through yet. I just know I'm going to scroll, and he's walking along like, I don't know what I'm looking up for, but I'm just going to look up, but I've never given it a name.
The reason I asked that, because obviously if you've looked at my content at all, you'll see, like, if I'm doing a video and I'm talking and my dog is by my side, he can't take his eyes off me. He just stands there the whole time looking up. And obviously I get a lot of messages just about that, saying, like, I love it how much your dog is. I just, then they're obsessed with the way he's obsessed with me. But that's what I want to ask you that question, because I don't ask my dog to do that. I want to build it up a picture in his head that he wants to do that for me.
I taught him at some point as a puppy, I taught him look at me as a command, and he will do it. I never use it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he'd forgotten it. Like, I taught him look at me because, when you're going through a list of stuff to teach your puppy, it was in there. But no, it was when I say this on, at least 2 or 3 of my sessions a day. If we can get the dog to want to look at you without you having to ask, life is a breeze compared to you going, oh, look at me, don't look at that.
Because that's what I find. I've obviously own a dog attached together through a lead. I'd say 99% of the time the dog isn't aware of the owner on the other side of it. That everything for that dog is away from them. The only way that owner gets a bit of attention is when they pull the lead. The dog's not aware of them,
or rustle some treats, or clap and beg for the attention. I've never, like, I don't teach a lot of people when it comes to, like, getting the dog to walk alongside them. Obviously it's a massive part of reactivity is getting your dog off the end of the lead, getting them to feel more secure in your handling, doing all that sort of stuff. But it's rare that I'll sort of tell them to work on a command to get the dog by their side. If we get moving and the dog drops in at your side, then you've done it. That's it. If you set off walking and it might just be, let's go, come on. And if the dog then drops in next to you, then you've cracked it, because otherwise they just walk ahead of you and sort of get to pulling and doing all the stuff that we don't want them to.
But it's like you said there a minute ago about the, like, reactivity, and they'll come for a session and then they'll go, what do you mean I've got to go and do all of this, go around the bush sort of thing to get to where you want? So I try and use my dog as the example during my sessions, because maybe, again, a lot of people might not know this, but Ovi, my dog that's in most of my content, I only got him when he was about 18 months. So he was a client of mine before I took him on. So he was with another couple.
Is it Dutch Shepherd?
Dutch Shepherd, yeah. So he's really nice couple, young family, new baby on the way. But he started out in a daycare.
Right.
And he got attacked when he was younger. So then he built up this idea of every other dog is nasty. So and obviously you've seen the size of him. He's a big lad. So he ended up pulling the previous owner. He ended up pulling her over when she was pregnant. Just so she was fine, no problems. But it was
Scared
just
to death from
it was just. They admitted sort of like, he's just too much. He's too much for us to sort of handle. But they've done loads of amazing stuff with him already. But they did get in touch with Greater Manchester Police,
right?
Because up until the age of 2, they're still willing to take a dog on to see if they're good enough to be a police dog. So he went for an assessment and he passed it. So he was about to start the 13-week course to see if he was good enough basically to be a police dog. Which a few days before, they got in touch with him and said, we've got no handlers, we've cut 2 of them in Manchester. So if we was to take him, he'd just be a kennel dog. So when I found out that, I spoke to my wife. I said, can we have him? So we've had him since then.
Please, I promise I'll walk him, I'll train him, I'll pick the poo up.
But it's like, I said it before, when you see a dog, you know if they've got potential or not. And when he first ever come for a session, even though he'd be reactive towards other dogs and he would have a bit of an issue with men as well, me and him just got on great from the start. And when I said that to her, I was like, they've sort of binned him off from going in the police. And she was like, why are you telling me? Because you want him or because you gutted? And I was like, well, both, to be honest. But he's my example of how long it possibly takes to overcome reactivity.
So how old is he now?
So he's just over 3 now. Right. So I've had him basically for how old he was when I got him, plus again. I've had him for that long. So we're in a good place with it now, so we can go out. He's not going to be kicking off on the lead. I can just tell in certain environments, whether there's too many triggers or not, where he gets a little bit more agitated. He don't react, but you can just tell that he's a little bit twitchy. So, but that's up to me then to manage the environment where I take him to. I don't want to stack all them triggers on top of each other. So he is an example of what I'll give to clients during a session, but I'm using him as sort of the proof that I know what I'm talking about. Like, if I can do it myself, I can teach you to do it as well. But then I guess that goes with the client, that they've got to have the certain skill set, which most people haven't. But then they haven't got the certain skill set to handle maybe the certain breed of dog that they've got. If it was a different breed, a little bit easier, maybe they could do it with that. But that's what I find. I don't know about you. I
think so. It's something I've toyed with more and more recently, because I've always kind of enjoyed breaking down bits of timing and breaking down obedience with an owner and making sure they know how to piece it all together and make sure the dog really understands stuff. But then there's some dogs where obedience just isn't their thing. They're not going to want to work on sits and downs and heels and stays and all those kind of things, because they're just a Shih Tzu or they're just a beagle or whatever, and they've we can get it to happen, but it's never going to be of a level where it's good enough to counteract a behavioural issue anyway. So it's purely there for, and it will be a bit of relationship building, a bit of mental stimulation for the dog, a bit of that kind of thing, but it isn't going to be the opposition behaviour to reactivity. Whereas I get Albus, my border collie, I know for a fact he'd grown up to be well reactive, given how driven he is and given his personality. I just feel like he'd be a reactive dog if I didn't do things from the off. But if there's ever something kicking off, so I can use him as a stooge dog, because if something's kicking off, even if he wants to kick off back, he ain't breaking that stay. He ain't breaking that heel. So his obedience counteracts any reactivity that he may have. If he ever became reactive, I still feel like I'd be able to use that. And I feel like something I'm noticing more and more is when I walk in and you see that in a dog that you said, where you noticed it with Ovi. I know there's one I worked with called Ori, and we started doing some lead work and just getting him walking next to us, and honestly you'd think he was after 20 minutes you'd think, oh my god, this dog's been doing this for years. Like he was head up, chest was like the works, and I just think, right, this dog, we're just going to use obedience and he's not going to kick off at anything ever again, as long as you're guiding him. And then other dogs, it really is about like the emotional side of it. And so yeah, that I like seeing that every now and again, where you just see this dog got something, even if he is acting a complete pillock right now. There's something in there.
But that's it. During a session, like you see the dog do a certain thing, and then you look at the owners and you can see the surprise on the face, like, wow,
is this my dog?
Can't believe you've just done that. So I've just had a dog in a couple of days ago, just scared of the world, nervous, brand new people. It's going to kick off and just bark at them and stuff. Within half an hour, like we were saying before, he's eating out the palm of your hand. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think because especially when it comes to like the nervous one, I know you're big on like your confidence building and that kind of thing. If we can find something that brings confidence out of that dog, they're going to be less reactive overall. But then we still have to work on all the handling side of it and the owner's reactions, because they're making sure they're not sort of holding the dog, pinning the dog up when they see another dog and all the rest of it. But yeah, just with that, what you were saying about Ovi, just like you notice there's something there. So if you were to have someone in and they say, right, if I've got a reactive dog, obviously they can say that over a message, but you kind of still want to meet them and see it and figure out. So what's your kind of assessment process to figure out, is it an actually aggressive dog? Is it just a frustrated, over-friendly muppet? Or is it like that one you've just said where it's scared of the world? What's your assessment process? How do you figure out this dog is behaving this way because of X emotion?
That's a good... well, as you asked me that question, I'm trying to pre-plan my answer there. But I don't know if I could put a certain thing on it. I feel like I just... As the dog's in front of me, I'll see it, and then I just know.
Yeah.
I know where... I couldn't put... I don't think I could put a finger on it, why I know that.
Yeah.
But what I'll do in any session, whether the dog... Any emotion, scared, nervous, aggressive, happy, whatever, I'll always ignore the dog to start with, probably for the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I get a good feel then, us being in each other's presence, what that dog is actually about.
Yeah.
After that 20 minutes, we're usually in a good place to interact straight away.
Yeah.
Whether the dog looked like it was going crazy and it looked like he wanted to kill me at the start of a session, like I said, within 20 minutes, most of the dogs, I can just take the lead and just start walking around, and it's not a problem. I think a lot of the way the dog reacts like that is when the owner's got hold of the lead.
Yeah.
The owner's giving them a lot of bad energy, which then the dog's feeding off. Yeah, I would say a lot of it is owners, and that's what I try during a session, like when a dog is kicking off on the lead. I'm not really aiming that session at the dog.
Yeah.
I'm aiming it at the owner, because the owner needs to make some adjustments. Then that's where you get a good before and after video.
Yeah.
The before video looks like the dog wants to kill you, and within a short space of time, you maybe you're handling the dog yourself, or you're walking past the client with them walking past with the dog at the same time. So yeah, I don't know if I could put an actual thing on how I know what the cause is, but I just have a good sense for it when I'm in front of it. I don't know.
So we had this on the last episode with Rachel, because she's been around so many different types of dogs, street dogs, wild dogs, pet dogs, all the rest of it. She's a vet nurse, obviously. She sees them in the raw moments where and she was saying the body language, if people could understand it better. But then I find I feel like I understand body language, and like if you show me the book, I'll tell you what they all mean. But sometimes it's a picture. You look at that dog and think, just because one thing says it's, the textbook says that means it's happy or scared, but then the rest of it's showing me it's not. And obviously, like if you get a dog without all of the pieces, so clipped ears, dog tail, I ain't got a clue what you're thinking. But I think once I've had a quick look at the dog and I'm like, right, okay, I've got a rough idea, and sometimes it's before I even look at the dog, because it's not doing the thing yet, I'll speak to the owners and I try and find out, what were the 6 months at the beginning like? How many dogs did it meet, if it's dog reactive especially? How many dogs did it meet? How many dogs did it meet where it actually interacted? How many times was it let off its lead and there's usually a lot more info there than I can get off the dog early on, because I do my best not to put the dog in a situation where I see it at its worst, because as much as it's helpful for me to have seen it and go, oh right, yeah, this is what we're dealing with, I'm really, really nervous or like hesitant to put the dog in a situation just so it shows me this is what I do when I'm at my worst, because does it benefit from that? I've just stressed it out for nothing. And can I get the answers out of the owner without putting that dog in the situation, and then just bypass having to go into a overwhelmed dog? And also, there's sometimes where once that dog's kicked off, that's it. The session's going to be hard to come back from because it's fear. If it's just a dog that's, you know, frustrated and wound up and over friendly and looks aggressive because it's barking and lunging, but actually it's just pissed off at the lead, you can recover from that straight away. But it's when, if you know it's fear or like, and it's really nervous, I don't want to set it up to kick off, because the rest of the sessions are
that's what I love. Obviously, where you know where I do my work from, on the main road there. So
I've seen you putting your tripod up the other day doing your videos.
It's quite busy. Like there's constantly different distractions. People walking past, the horses in the field. Like there's a lot of distractions there. So without purposefully trying to put the dog in a situation so I can see it, we're kind of, because we're so on the main road doing that, we're in the real world whilst we're still.
But you're still secured.
So yeah, we're in a controlled place, but I can still see the reactions that the owners are talking about. But I would say more often than not, if you have got a dog that's kicking off on the lead, I would say more often than not that it's barrier frustration, because I think I said it before, but that dog values what it sees over the other side of the road more than it values you, and the barrier that's in place, that lead, is causing them to be frustrated, and frustration builds drive. So the more drive you get put into it, you're going to get reactions.
I just say that to people when we're talking about, well, you know, I just want him to not kick off. I don't mind if he's bad on the lead. I'm like, right, how do you get a police dog to go and take someone down? You pull it backwards so it goes forward, and you can see the colour drain from the face, like, oh shit. Every time that we're walking forward and we're against each other, like you were saying, everything's away from the owner, I'm just winding up that slingshot, that dynamo that's just going to pop off as soon as a trigger comes. I think something else that I've noticed more and more of, and I've started asking people a lot more, is how old was it, or how often did it get off lead and free time or flexi lead time compared to actually, you know, time on the lead, whether it's walking or just being with you. And I've noticed a lot of the barrier frustrated ones are that way because there was no barrier between 4 to 8 months. They kind of and you'll have this, you'll get this as often as I do, I'm sure. I'll get a phone call from someone or a message from someone, and they'll be saying, oh, the dog's recall's crap, but it was great until 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and that dog was just too scared to go away from them. It didn't have a recall, it was just didn't want to get too far away from mum. And then they were letting it off thinking it was great, and it started to be able to move freely and had no restrictions on its movement, which is great if that dog's earned it, if that dog's learned to be off lead but can still be good on it. And I think so many people have been pulled to the park, they're sick of the dog being crap on the lead, but it's great once it's off the lead, and then they get to the point where they can't let it off the lead anymore because it's not safe to do so. And now they've got this absolute terror on the lead because for the first year of its life, it didn't really spend much time on one, and then it gets used to one. I think that's something that I think should be, like, when you talked about education at the start, if we could educate people on that, if I could get like 2 points out into the world, one would be socialization doesn't mean socializing, because that's massive. Just because it's got the word social in it doesn't mean interacting. It means being a member of society, not being in everyone's face. But the other side of it would be puppies don't have recall. It doesn't exist. And if I could pick, I'll ask you this in a minute, but if I could pick like one lesson or two lessons that every potential dog owner just came pre-fitted with, they knew that if they knew nothing else, that'd be it. Puppies don't have recall, socialization isn't socializing. What would yours be?
Mine's relationship. So like I said, Ovi, I got him at 18 months old. I've also got a cane corso. She's just a really lazy dog. She just don't want to do anything. So you don't really make any good content with her because she's that lazy. She don't want to do anything. So I would say though, what I did too much of with her is just the basic education that's out there, teaching basic commands and stuff like that. Like, I would say that I missed out probably a lot of relationship building with her. So if I was to get a new dog, it would be solely focused on relationship.
Yeah, just
for the first...
Go everywhere and play with it.
Good few months at least. Before I even think about trying to do any basic commands, it'd just be relationship, where my dog chooses me over everything else, because once you've got that, you can have everything else that you want.
Yeah.
But that's why I'd say people don't do that part. They just try and do the work, so sit down, recall stuff, whatever. They just try and focus on that, and then your dog's building up the idea that you're not actually that interesting, you're quite boring.
Yeah.
But if we had built that interest to start with, then they'd be buying into everything else that we would want to try and teach them.
Spin and sit once it's obsessed with you. It's dead easy.
That's one thing I was thinking, because obviously you do the puppy class, don't you? And then I've never been to a puppy class, so my idea of it, I don't know how yours works, but my idea of it is that it wouldn't be the best environment for a brand new puppy to learn in. So question that I wanted to ask was, the stuff that you do in a puppy class, does that stuff translate into the real world? Just because I would say that my idea, what I have of a puppy class, we teach them basic stuff, sit down, that kind of stuff, and then I don't think most puppy classes then give the owner skills to take to the real world.
Yeah, so the reason we do the puppy class and the thing in there, so I spend a lot of it, I'll teach the owners how to teach a command. Yeah. I don't give the foggiest if the dog actually picks it up. I couldn't care less if the dog learns it here. I could care less if the dog ever learns it, as long as I know the owner knows how to teach a dog. I spend a lot of time in the puppy class helping them avoid the common mistakes. My puppy class is owner education. There's some dogs that come in there and they leave and they know some stuff. I don't care. And then other dogs that, you know, they've really done their own work and the dog's great at the stuff when they leave. I still don't care, because they're still only 6 months old. But at least I know the owner has that skill set now. But then I also know that dog spent a few weeks or a few Sunday mornings in a room with a bunch of other dogs that it couldn't go and jump all over, and it was doing stuff with its owner. If the owner's making a complete hash of it, I don't care. And if the dog's not picking up, but as long as their dog's like, all right, you're giving me treats, you're playing me, you're doing whatever, there's a dog over there, never mind. And they're doing a little bit of proper socializing, even if then they either are or aren't learning the skills. And a big part of one of the things that I say to everyone, week one I always talk about, don't go out of here and keep letting your dog off the lead and letting it go say hi to everyone, because that's how you get a reactive. I'm doing myself out of business long term, because they'd come back and book me if I didn't tell them, because they'd need me. But they get told about the recall thing, like, we're going to teach you how to do recall, but don't worry about it for another 6 months because your dog's not ready, and how to avoid the big problems. And then we just practice some basic stuff and some engagement stuff. But the goal is that they leave there knowing how not to turn that dog into a nightmare, but also if they do decide they want to teach it to sit, to down, to stay, to heel, to come, whatever, they know what to do with their arms, legs and mouth. But yeah, it's not a case of it's not the right environment for the dog to learn. But I'm not really trying to teach them the specific thing while they're there. I'm trying to get them to...
That's just my... Obviously, like I said, I've never been to one and I've never been to yours. So, but... A lot of people obviously come for sessions and obviously we've done the puppy class thing, and then but obviously they've got all these issues that they come in for one-to-one training with, and that's what I always thought to myself is, what do people actually teach in puppy classes? Because I don't know if that sets a dog up for real life.
I think if you're doing there's the Dogs Trust one, and there's another one, and they're the franchise. You buy a franchise of a puppy class and you've got to follow their set curriculum. That's going to do no one any good, because that dog's not ready to learn how to sit for more than a few seconds. It's not whereas I come in and say, you're gonna be in the room with at least one, maybe two real dog trainers that are out there fixing problems. You're here to figure out how not to need to pay me a fortune later to fix the problem, because you got the information now. It wouldn't there's a lot of puppy classes, I guess, but the typical puppy class, they won't get the information that really matters. And if I can get somewhere between 5 and 10 puppy owners in a room and 3 of them hear me, then that's 3 dogs that don't have an awful few years where they're picking up all those problems and going through all that stress. I'm happy if I've got that. And then the other thing is, I do get then some people will be like, they'll look at it and go, oh my God, I didn't realise how much goes into training a dog. Can we get some one-to-ones booked in? And then they really get some progress. Yeah. So yeah, I think sometimes it's a way of getting people into our ecosystem where they learn about us, they get to know me, they get to know Lauren, and they go, oh right, I like these people, I'll do more work with them. But then others, it's just if I can get them out, get them to leave after the final week without, and they know what to avoid and what to focus on, like relationship, like not over socializing, then I'll be really happy, even if it's not that profitable to have like one puppy in. Like it's they might leave here and not need me 2 years from now, or need you, or need whoever.
Obviously, that's obviously good. Then if you're putting the message out straight from the off, like obviously don't do this, don't do that. But I overheard a conversation not too long ago, a few weeks back, and so one person with a dog, probably 1-2 year old, someone else has just got a brand new dog, obviously doesn't know an awful lot about dogs, but then the question that the one with the puppy asked the other owner is, what age did you start letting your dog off the lead? And I don't know how or why it's common knowledge. Obviously it's the wrong information, but it's common knowledge for people to get a dog and think, I have to let my dog off the lead as soon as possible. I don't know where that information's come from.
I don't even know if it's information as much as there's nothing better than watching your dog just go be a dog without anything attached to them, but you got to earn it. Yeah, I think I always say if it's for the average dog, 12 months. Yeah, and even then, you've got to have proofed it. So I always say to people, we do a bit of recall stuff, and no one actually goes all the way through it, but it gives someone an idea of how in depth they need to proof it. 7 recalls on 7 different days in 7 different places, and if you didn't have to touch the long line on any single one of those recalls, you can let your dog off the lead knowing that you couldn't be more responsible than that. But then I think a lot of people look at that and go, oh God, I'd be holding that long line all the time, I'd have to constantly and it helps people check. So it's not about age for me.
But I would say even that with the long line, obviously that's a responsible way to kind of give your dog some freedom, but I still think people rush through that freedom. So instead of I don't know, you've got a 20 metre long line or something, the owner's got one end, the dog's got their end, and there's 20 metres in the middle that the dog doesn't know how to cope with. So I'd say even that, people go, oh yeah, I'm going to get a long line, or they tell someone else to go and get a long line, but you've got to start short on that and then build it up over time. Same with anyone, but this is what I always find, and I know this within my own training, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with this, but we have an end goal of what we want to achieve, and as humans, if we could do something to cut some corners, we would 100% cut corners, but in dog training you just can't do that. Yeah, you'll never achieve your end goal.
You take one of those steps out and the whole cookie
because one thing I've always been trying to, I say always trying to work on, I've like done it for a little bit, then jumped out of it and tried to jump back in it, is mine and Ovi's heel work. So we're in a really good sort of place if it looks quite nice, as in he's right here by his side, he's looking all the nice little turns and stuff like that, but it's not the place I want it to be. I want to try and get all the fancy prancing around and stuff. So I'd always like kind of jumped in and out of the idea of, I kind of know what would need to be done, but then I can always cut corners and think I want to push it on a little bit further, and I never really got him to do any kind of prancing. And I'd say over the last probably month or so, I changed a few things about what I do about it, and I've been more dedicated into it, and now he is prancing. So he's not doing the full range of movement, like his paws don't go all the way up, but
do you think he ever will, knowing that he didn't learn that muscle memory as like a 5-6 month old pup?
He's too big to get the full movement, but he definitely gets a prance, like you can get half a prance at the bottom. I've been doing quite well, and we've been doing it quite consistent of getting it out of him. So he is picking it up, but it's just obviously about me keeping up that journey and keep progressing with it.
Knowing not to try and jump too many steps.
I can't jump forward because I'm never going to get it with him if I keep jumping.
I feel like that's a lesson you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of time. And a lot of the time, I'll do this with owners a lot. I'll let them get a long line, and then they realise, we don't need that yet, do we? And let them learn that the hard way. But something I noticed, so I was telling you before, I went shadowing Jimmy from Dog Perfection, who we're going to hopefully have on the podcast soon. And they were a dog that had been doing a load of good stuff. It was ready to start looking at recall. And we said, right, we're going to go in the garden. And she said, right, I've got this long line. And then she had like a halty double-ended lead And he went, no, that one will do. And she looked at him like he had two heads. She went, what, for recall? And he went, yeah, that's far enough. And it was like, 2 meters long. Yeah. And she was like, all right. And he went, well, if we can't do it from here, we can't do it from there.
Yeah.
And I think people know that, but they don't know that until they've put that extra 20 meters that you mentioned and realised my dog doesn't listen after 10. So something we try and do on every episode is try and get some questions from people and ideally tailor them to who we've got on. So about reactivity, so we talked about a little bit about this beforehand. So off-lead dogs are the bane of everyone's life if you've got a reactive dog or if you're a dog trainer. How do you go about limiting the amount of times you have to deal with it, and what do you do when it actually does happen, if it happens? If you've got an off-lead dog that is just everything we've just talked about and is coming over to say hi to your big Dutch Shepherd that isn't a great big fan of being run at, how do you limit it and how do you react to it?
I always say this to people, then obviously clients that come along, is that's like you said then, it's a bane of everyone's life, an off-lead dog running over. So I have to ask, if it was me, or what I say to the clients is, are you in the right environment for you and your dog, your situation that you're having to deal with? So your dog doesn't like off-lead dogs running over. I know it's bad that we can't go to certain places, and we should feel as though we could go through a park. If that's where we want to go walk our dog, we should feel like we should be able to do that. But you go to a park, you're gonna have off-lead dog running over to you. So it's a harsh reality, really. If you're a reactive dog owner, you have to choose the environment that you go to. So I say, obviously we live quite local to each other, so the environments where we potentially could take a dog, I'd say there's probably, me personally, I'd only take the dog to one park around locally to us. That'd be High Crompton Park, just because I like how much space you've got.
Yeah.
So
you can always
you can always go off somewhere else. And if there is an off-lead dog coming sort of into your area, you could always divert early enough and kind of keep the distance towards them. But on the question of what do you do if one does come over, that's a hard one, and it depends on what you're willing to do.
Yeah.
So, because like I said, Over used to be really reactive towards other dogs, and he would hate the idea of a dog running over to him. Without going into a lot of detail, I'll do whatever it takes to keep my dogs safe, and if that means I have to do something to get rid of that other dog, then that's what I have to do. And if the other owner wants to have a go at me for that, then that's not my problem, and I don't feel bad about that.
I think I had this once. We just got out of a car. We were in the car park. It was at High Crompton Park. Just got out. The plan was to work around the outside of the park. We weren't even going into it. We were in the car park. The idea was to go on the road near the North Star pub. Yeah. And there might be a couple of dogs on the field. It'd just be an easing in for the owners because they were really nervous about this. Yeah. And we got out of the car, and this pug came thundering out of its owner's car underneath the car and come straight toward this dog, and it ran straight into the bottom of my shoe. Yeah. Like, just put my shoe out. Nope. And it just face planted the bottom of my shoe. I didn't kick it, but I definitely stopped it abruptly. Yeah. But it was better than what was going to happen for everyone involved. And this woman was like, don't kick my dog. And I was like, first, I didn't. Secondly, what are you playing at? Yeah. Why would you let it do that? Are you stupid? And a bit more confrontational than I probably should have been. Yeah. And I said, if she'd have got to this dog, I don't know what happens next. And that's a vet bill that you're paying, not us. Yeah. And you could see her go, oh. And then she sort of scurried off. Sorry, and she still had one pug under her arm, and she's got the other, and she's like scuttled off. And the owners went, "We'd have let that happen."
The amount of people though that
I wouldn't have done that. I couldn't have brought myself to do that. I think, what that dog will thank you for that if it knew what was really going to happen, what was about to happen.
That's what I mean. I say that all the time. If you're with your dog doesn't like the idea of another dog running over, and you allow that other dog to get to your dog's going to lose a lot of trust in you because you can't. It feels as though you can't protect that dog. So I want to be able to deal with whatever situation might arise like that. So basically, my dog looks at me and goes, "You're a warrior." Like I was quite worried about what was going to happen then, but you stepped in, you did something. I'm talking from the dog's point of view. The dog's thinking, I don't need to worry next time because I know that you're going to step up for me. Obviously, one thing I'm not trying to advocate is people jump in the middle of a situation because that can be quite dangerous. Yeah. I've done that once before when I was earlier in this industry. the dog, we had an off-lead dog sort of run straight over to us. I'd kind of put myself between both dogs. The dog that I was actually with and handling just redirected onto my leg.
Nearest target.
Yeah, so obviously that's a big experience that I learnt, but I wouldn't be advocating for people to go and do that, especially, you know, if it's a big dog running over as well, and you've got two big dogs there. It's a dangerous situation.
Do you think picking up your dog is a bad idea?
Definitely a bad idea.
You reckon?
Do you know
if you're say I've changed my tune on this a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're not able to deal with Cerberus that's come running over, and even if he is big and friendly, but your dog's freaking out, if you know the only way that you're going to make that dog not be able to get to your dog because you're not strong enough to get rid of that one is pick yours up and you get out of there, is that worse than
I get what you're saying,
failing to get rid of that dog and leaving your dog down there, especially if you've got like you've got a dachshund or whatever, you've got a I feel like I don't have a dog, maybe mine's kind of small enough I could do it, but I don't think I would. But I'm not against people doing it as much as I used to be, because I've seen people say, oh, I know you're not supposed to pick them up, but then their dog's been attacked. I'm like, that maybe didn't need to happen if you had a dog that's small enough.
I guess it depends on the situation, doesn't it? Whether, like you said, size
I'm happy
of dog.
to just back off, like do what, shoe a dog, grab a dog, whatever.
I've had it plenty of time. You've probably seen one sort of viral video of mine where I'm in a field and I had a big rant about this woman who let this off-lead dog run over, but I seen it run over. It was friendly, do you know what I mean? But she said it was a guide dog in training, and as soon as she said that, that's what made me lose my head on that one. But I just thought, you're willing to be that irresponsible that if a bad situation happened, because you don't know my dog, so if something bad happened, then that a person that needs a guide dog's potentially not going to get one just because of you being irresponsible. So that's what made me the video was perfectly timed. I was still raging. I just I knew what I was doing though. I was like, give me my phone. I was like this, and just make the video now.
There's one of mine on Facebook, the exact same thing. I've just got in my car and started slagging some woman off, and like someone even commented and saying, well, no, if you've got a dog like that, you shouldn't be in those places. Puppies should be allowed to delete, get off my page, you know.
But that's what they're saying. It's what she said as well. She was like, well, if your dog's aggressive, it should be muzzled. I said, nothing about aggressiveness. I'm trying to keep your dog safe, as you don't know what mine are like. So crazy.
It's the unanswerable question, isn't it? What do you do? The answer changes. So this is quite a good one. My dog is selectively reactive. So it's not all the time. They can't see a theme into the type of dogs. They don't know if, obviously they'll never know if it's like intact males, because you can't go and check underneath afterwards. But why might their dog be selectively reactive and not just reactive to everything every time?
I would say trigger stacking behind that. So if viewers don't know what trigger stacking is, the way I usually have, actually I'm going to do it now, so if we get this on the camera as well, I might be able to see it. So this is what I usually have with me. I can't go anywhere without an energy drink, right? So let's say we go out. I'm getting
bellyache just looking at that.
So we go out we're going to go out for a walk. That's empty, but then our dog has triggers in the environment that make it feel a certain way. So if it sees a dog at, let's say, 50 meters away, it still changed that dog's behavior a little bit, which has been a slight trigger that you could tip a bit of water into there, so it'd only be just a little bit at the bottom. But if we then pass the next trigger, and the next trigger is on the same path as us, and that dog is really barking towards us, then that'd be an even bigger emotion behind it for that dog, so it'd be a bigger trigger. Rhymes there, doesn't it? So you could add more water into that cup then, so it doesn't matter. Everyone's got a different capacity to deal with stress. So same for our dog then. Some people have a short fuse, some people are really patient. So someone with a short fuse are going to fill that up really quickly. Someone who are patient, it might take 20 different triggers to fill that up.
So the short fuse has got a shot glass and the other person's got a 2 litre
exactly,
bottle.
So if we can notice sort of a pattern of being selective who we react towards and who we don't, I would say behind that is a build-up of triggers, which then, if we, let's just say we pass 9 dogs and we didn't get any reaction out of our dog, what them 9 moments happened was it made this go full. So then that next one that comes along, the 10th one,
that helpless little shit
that
didn't even look at you.
That is overflowing now. Yeah. So when that overflows is when we're going to get a reaction that comes out. So I would say, like, I that used to blow my mind a little bit as to why, and I was just like, that's the reason I'm coming up with trigger stacking.
Yeah. So I think I've had that a lot, but then they're saying, well, they're like that with the first dog out the door, but then not some after. And I feel like people don't understand how much of a trigger leaving your house is emotionally. Even if it's because your dog's well excited, people kind of underestimate quite how much is going through a dog's body and a dog's brain in the first 10 minutes out the door, especially if it gets one walk a day, or maybe even less. Getting out that door, you're going to have 10 minutes of just utter chaos going on in the dog's brain, which is why we do a lot of like threshold work and making sure that start the walk's calm and all the rest of it. But I think trigger stacking is such a simple concept to wrap your head around once you know what it is. Like the can there's a perfect way of looking at it. But I think some people sometimes don't realise that they're putting in as well. It's not just a dog is a trigger.
It's picking the lead up, picking the harness up. That's already contributing to that, because the dog associating seeing that object with, yes, we're going out for a walk, but then they associate that walk with, I feel like this, I feel scared, I feel nervous, anxious, whatever them, or overexcited, whatever the emotions are.
Emotion, isn't it? It's all one big bubble. Yeah, I think trigger stacking, but if you look at it as it's not just the external trigger, it's the
there's definitely loads that I would go into talking about that. Like, there's loads.
One of them, probably haven't got long enough to really go into this. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I want to get just a quick answer on this. I know my answer. My dog hasn't been neutered. Will he be less reactive if I get him neutered?
That's a big gamble, whether you're going to get it or not. Yeah. So it's a myth that if you get your dog done, basically, that you're going to sort out all your issues, which the dogs that come to me, I would say if they've been done and then they come to me, their issue is worse. Yeah. Obviously, it might work the other way around. Some people might get the dog done and it's had a good effect, but I'll never see that dog because it's not a problem. But I would definitely say it's a really big gamble that you're going to go with. And I've had my female dog spayed just because when I got him and brought him home, she always used to have phantom pregnancies, and when she was in season, it was just a nightmare to keep them apart. So I decided to get her spayed. She's still a good dog. She's a weird dog now. She definitely does strange things. Obviously I won't go into it. We got a couple of minutes, but
we'll get you back on. We can do this again, I'm sure.
Definitely she is so much weirder than she used to be after being spayed.
I'm scared to get mine done because I love him as he is right now, and even if, like, because you can argue the health benefits and all the rest of it, and you can get two different vets to argue that all day, but I like him exactly as he is right now. He's perfect. What if he might even become like an even better behaved dog, but that's my dog and I don't want to mess with the settings. But I think for a lot of it, if you don't know where the behaviour's coming from, that question is a dangerous one to ask. Because if the behaviour's coming from fear and you take out that dog's ability to produce testosterone, you mess with the settings, you've got the chance of making it irreparably bad. But then you might, and that's where we won't see the dog where it worked, but you might get somewhere they speak to their uncle and he goes, oh, just get him done, because my dog was a complete pillock and then I got him done and now he's a dream dog. And that is the worst thing, because what happened with that one, like you said, it's a gamble, it's a lottery. What happened with that one won't happen with yours, and then you can't recover from it, and you can do the chemical castrations, all the rest of it, but you still
it's that testosterone that's the confidence booster, and you get rid of that confidence booster, the only thing you've got left to rely on as a being yourself is what you tell yourself in your head. And if you're telling yourself you're anxious or scared, you're not going to change your mind about it. You would then have to rely on your owner to try to give you that confidence, but then again, most owners are probably not giving the dog enough confidence.
That's a good answer. Cool. So well, we're just about out of time, so thank you so much for coming on, Lewis. Really appreciate it. First dog trainer we've had on. We've had a vet nurse, we've had Matt, we'll have plenty of other trainers, plenty of other people on, and I'm sure we'll get you back on as well. Where can people find you if they haven't already?
TikTok, Facebook, Insta, YouTube, Manchester Canine Academy. Go there, shoot me.
Cool.
And usually send me a message if you want any help at all. I'll direct you to my email address, and then we'll sort out bookings from there.
Cool. So that's Lewis. Like I said, check him out on all the socials. He's got some great content out there. The following's growing all the time, so you must be doing something right with that content. It must be useful. It must be giving people value. So go and check it out because it could help you too. And once again, thanks for coming on, mate. And we'll see you on the next one.